There's about 4 or 5 seats toward the first row. Please take a seat at this time. Thank you very much. Family and friends, before we commence our services, please make sure that your cell phones are in the off position at this time. Thank you very much. Following our memorial service, you're all welcome to join the family back at Nancy and Fritz's residence at 933 Kenton Road in Deerfield. And as you enter the chapel today, you received a blue folder. That blue folder has very specific instructions, both written as well as a map on the inside for your convenience. To begin our services for Mickey, I'd like to ask cousin and one of Mickey's first friends, Mark Field, to come up at this time to begin our services. Thank you.
It's an understatement, to say the least, that Mickey Cobrin was unique. By anyone's standards, he clearly was, and frankly, that's the way he wanted it. Let's start with the way he even spelled his name, his way. I always thought that was kind of strange because as a kid, another Mickey, Mickey Mantle, who was his favorite baseball player, spelled his name the usual way. But our Mickey wanted to be different. In thinking about it, Mickey Cobrin was our very own Peter Pan. He didn't believe in boundaries, and if there were any, he just flew right over them. I oftentimes looked at Mickey as my alter ego. For better or for worse, he did things his own way, regardless of the consequences, but most of the time it worked out for him. He had a heart of gold and only wanted the best for everyone, especially his family, of whom he was very proud. He adored all of his children and grandchildren. At any time that I was with him, he extolled their many, many achievements. He took particular enjoyment in seeing them accomplish their goals, even if he sometimes had difficulty with his own. Growing up, Mickey and I were together constantly. We were inseparable. If such a thing is possible, we grew up much more like brothers than cousins. And when I look back at our childhood, I actually credit Mickey with many of the fun and exciting things that ever happened to me. We had countless adventures and misadventures together. Ordinarily, I'd mention a few of those adventures or misadventures, but frankly, the statute of limitations still may not be over. Besides, back in the day, one learned very early when hanging with Mickey and Steve that nobody likes a rat. His father, my Uncle Buddy, was a very special guy. He was an amazing uncle. No matter what Mickey and I would be up to, it would be impossible to get in trouble with him. Uncle Buddy had a magnetic personality and a huge number of friends. When Mickey and I decided to build a treehouse in my backyard in Glencoe, we envisioned having a rope ladder to climb up and down. We asked my parents for this rope ladder, only to get turned down. They thought it was too dangerous. Of course, we then asked Uncle Buddy, who almost instantaneously delivered to us the best rope ladder that you could imagine. That was typical for his dad, my Uncle Buddy. Trust me, everyone in life should have an Uncle Buddy. Mickey idolized his father. And when Uncle Buddy passed away at 50 years old, Mickey was 17. And that was probably the toughest blow that he ever had. I don't know if you ever really recover from that when you're 17. Mickey told me more than once that there was never a day that went by in his life that he didn't think of his father. Mickey and I ended up taking different paths in life. As adults, our visits were far less frequent, but we still shared an unbreakable bond. For the past many years, we would call each other on birthdays, and it was always more than a "hi, how are you" phone call. And because my path in life was more traditional, some would say more predictable, I was really interested in finding out what was going on in Mickey's life. So our calls usually ended up with Mickey talking literally a mile a minute, telling me about what he had going on in Chicago or LA, and then whatever was newsworthy with Angela, Andrea, Mickey B, or Allie. Peggy, he knew that you were the glue for the whole Cobrin family. He was proud of all of you. Now, standing here today talking about Mickey at his memorial service, it has a very surreal feel for me, as I'm sure it must for many of you. When I first got the call that Sunday night that Mickey had passed away, I was stunned. I immediately thought that there had been a mistake. When you grow up with a guy from the time you're 6 months old, and you're constantly together for the first 20 years of your life, you really do know what a guy's all about. And to me, Mickey was practically invincible. He was stronger than I was, faster than I was, a better athlete, and clearly tougher. Those things matter a lot when you're a kid. If I ever had trouble with someone in Glencoe, Mickey would be there on weekends to back me up. If it was real trouble, I knew that I might even have to bring in Steve. So it was hard for me to believe that Mickey had passed away. Interestingly, even though Mickey lives in California and I live in New York, I always had the feeling that if I needed help, he'd be there. I hoped he felt the same way about me. And even though over the last many years we didn't see each other nearly as often, or even talk all that often, I always felt that he was with me in spirit. He just wasn't around. Now, Mick, I still feel like you and I are together in spirit. It's just that you and I are no longer an airplane ride away.
I'd like to call up Nancy Hirsch, Mickey's sister.
Hi, I'm Nancy, and I was lucky enough to call Mickey my brother. The little sister he'd love to torment, running through the halls of Bateman, calling me Fat Man, to the tune of Batman. Growing up, Mickey always wanted to be like our dad, and he was charismatic, complicated, generous, a character, a talker. Oh, could he talk? Never any BS, but sensitive and tough all in one. Everyone loved Mickey. He had a way of getting under your skin and a way of always getting what he wanted. Like when we were kids and our dad was taking us to Sunday school and Mickey started crying because he didn't want to go. And of course he got up going. I thought it was a great idea, but it didn't work for me. He loved my mom and she loved him as her own, and I think wanted to protect him. Little did she know, Mickey was a street kid who was able to survive on his own. But deep down, he always just wanted to be loved. And we all know he truly was. My only hope is that he knew he was truly loved. Things weren't always easy in Mickey's life, but he always figured out a way on his own most of the time, or sometimes with the help of his family or his good friends. When I met Fritz, they became instant friends. Fritz loved having discussions with Mickey, mostly because Mickey would do all the talking. And Mickey completely trusted Fritz's opinion. I won't lie, there were some complex times in our brother-sister relationship. But through all those periods, we still had a special bond and knew we could depend on one another for anything. We all know Mickey befriended everyone, whether it was in a bar, restaurant, business meeting, or a friendly gathering in Chicago, LA, Aruba, or anywhere. He would strike up a conversation and end up having a lifelong friend. Even with all these people and friends around, we all knew Peggy was Mickey's life in every respect. Love, parenting, and business. And speaking of business, we would always joke, Mickey had an idea a minute, an opinion on everything. Recently, he took on the title of life coach, but what we've come to learn is how true it really was. He was a mentor and friend to all who met him. He achieved what he always wanted, to be a trusted and valued and devoted husband, father, brother, uncle, and friend. Like we all do, I feel a huge loss, and there's part of my life definitely missing. I'm Nancy, and I was lucky enough to have Mickey as my brother.
Thank you, Nancy. At this time, can Bonnie Abraham come up at this time representing Mickey's office at Cobble Banker? Thank you.
This is for all of us who worked with him for many years and knew him and loved him as a friend, as a part of our work family. I'd like to start with a quote from a book about a man who sounds an awful lot like our friend Mickey. Down these mean streets a man must go who is not himself mean, who is neither tarnished nor afraid. He is the hero. He is everything. He must be a complete man and a common man and an unusual man. He must be a man of honor by instinct and by inevitability, without thought of it, and certainly without saying it. He must be the best man in his world and a good enough man for any world. The story is this man's adventure, and it would be no adventure if it did not happen to a man fit for adventure. If there were enough like him, the world would be a very safe place to live in without becoming too dull to be worth living in it. Our Mickey would never tolerate a dull world. Mickey Cobrin was an original. He was a good man, a man of character, a man who loved deeply and was loved in return. He brought to his family a mighty heart. He brought to his friends a mighty heart. He never judged. He just listened and offered his hand, his shoulder, his advice, and his love. That's who Mickey was. Someone who cared deeply. Someone who charmed you and disarmed you with his playfulness and put you completely at ease. Mickey never met a stranger. Within minutes of meeting, he somehow had gained a new friend, often for life. He was a good friend to so many. He could be counted on and depended on always. Whether you needed sound counsel, an empathetic ear, a shoulder to lean on, or a drinking buddy, he was your man. Ready, steadfast, willing, and good fun. He admired service people, found them and their life stories much more interesting than the other people who drifted in and out of his life. He also liked older people. Believe it or not, he had the patience to sit with them for hours and draw them into conversations that would continue each time they met again. His favorite song was "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong. And every time I hear it for the rest of my life, I'll think of Mickey. It was a song he always requested of his close and longtime friend Lloyd, the piano player at Gibson's on Rush Street, one of his very favorite places. Through it all, he was the consummate best friend, listening carefully to the problems of everyone he met, and then spending time to get those problems fixed. As I look out at the faces here in front of me, I see many, many friends, and I know that they too will miss the friendship that Mickey brought into their lives. It's impossible to pay tribute to Mickey without recognizing the important role that spirituality and a new sense of wonder within Mickey during the past couple of years, played within Mickey during the last couple of years. He sought out people of many different faiths and walks of life who could teach him, help him understand new ways of thinking about things that he had had little interest in previously. Like the group of Orthodox Jews he befriended in LA, who convinced him it was important to light Shabbat candles, not just occasionally, but every Friday. And the Christian woman whose mission was to work in Africa, who he tried to understand, but supported always. And the man he called Coach, who he said was really his life coach. He always strove to be the best that he could be, family man, colleague, friend, and champion to others. To all of his kids, gosh, it's been said already, he was so very proud of each of you and the things you've accomplished in your lives and would gladly share your latest achievements. Mickey has left you with a rich inheritance, valuable gifts. First of all, you're all wicked smart, as his Boston friends would say. He taught you how to be strong and compassionate. He taught you how to get back up when life knocks you down. You learned how to make those around you feel like we matter because your dad taught you that everybody matters. He understood that if you do right by your children, maybe you can pass on to them what's really important. And what greater inheritance is there? What greater inheritance than to be part of a family that passes on the values of what it means to be a good parent, that passes on the values of what it means to care for others fully and freely without expecting anything in return. Peggy, I know I speak for everyone here, we are so happy to have you in our lives. There aren't words big enough to describe how much he loved you and all his kids and grandchildren. We know that Mickey's passing has left a gaping void in the world. We also know that it wasn't always easy to ride that roller coaster with him and can only imagine the burdens that you've been asked to carry on your shoulders. It's because you gave him everything that he could give us everything. And just as you were there for him, his safe place to land will be there for you. The lyrics from this Bob Dylan song feel somehow appropriate right now, and it goes a little bit like this. May God bless you and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars and climb on every rung, and may you stay forever young. May you always be courageous, stand upright, and be strong, and may you stay forever young. May your hands always be busy. May your feet always be swift. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of changes shift. May your heart always be joyful. May your song always be sung. And may you stay forever young. and he got his wish. He'll stay forever young. We don't know how long we've got here. We don't know when fate will intervene. We cannot know the plan for us. What we do know is that with every minute that we've got, we can learn from Mickey and live our lives in a way that takes nothing for granted. As hard as it is right now, through all the heartache and through all the tears, it's our obligation to Mickey to think not about what was and what might have been, but instead to think about what is because of him. We can love deeply. We can help people who need help. We can teach our children what really matters and pass on empathy and compassion and the ability to be a friend for life. We can teach them to have a big heart. Today, although our hearts are breaking, we need to think of him and remember his mighty heart. Mickey Cobrin brought to his friends a mighty heart. He brought to his family a mighty heart. The same heart that helped him to leave us on his terms. What a good man. What an original. May his memory be a blessing to all the lives he touched.
At this time, I'd like to call upon Mickey's eldest daughter, Angela, along with Matt, Willem, and Ella.
Mickey Cobrin, or Big Mick as we called him, was one of the most unique people I've ever met. He always wanted me to be the best I could be. Life never seemed boring with him. Every day we were with him was a surprise. It's hard to capture the essence of his personality in words. He was kind and always listened, while being stubborn at the same time. From a young age, he told me investment banking was the field to go into. He was always amazing me with his vast knowledge. Memories that will live on forever are our trip to Aruba, Disneyland, and spending time at various resorts and talking about running and politics. Big Mick was a man of mystery who truly lived life to the fullest. He will be missed.
The other night, I saw this quote on a journal. It reminded me of Big Mick, and this is how I believe he lived his life. This is the quote. You are the earth.
Do you want to take a minute? Okay, let me...
I'll just try to add a little bit to what others have said before. But as we heard before, Mickey was a man who defied categorization. He could seem tough and brusque and intimidating to a young man dating his daughter. But at the same time, he loved Disneyland and Mickey Mouse. He was not prone to open displays of affection. I never thought of him pictured him with sappy expressions of love, but a tour through his office at his home reveals quickly how deeply he loved his family. I admired his strength and his confidence, and I admired his ability to seem in control of any situation. I admired his generosity, and I knew that if we ever needed anything, he would be there to make it right. I'll always think of the detailed, in-depth conversations that we had about politics and sports, usually by the pool at a beautiful resort, it seemed. His grandchildren call him Big Mick, and that's how I'll always think of him, as big. He was a big person. He'll leave a big hole. I wish I knew him better, and I'll miss him.
I'm going to read my niece Ella's quote here. It said, "You are the architect of your own destiny. This life is yours. Don't waste it. Live your life with no regrets." And she says that she thinks Big Mick, as she called her, would have liked the quote, and she's right. And she says she misses him very much. It's a very sweet little girl.
So it's impossible to sum up a life, especially that of a parent. So instead, I'm going to mention a few standouts. My father loved politics. He talked about politics nonstop. I love politics. My poor kids hear it at the table every night. As a matter of fact, my daughter said next time when she grows up, during the primaries, she won't come visit with her family. My dad voted for Jesse Jackson, or I don't know if he voted for him, but he supported Jesse Jackson in 1984 and 1988. And I was so proud of that, especially growing up in the South. That was just something that was very, very impressive, and I just couldn't believe. Talk radio, my dad always listened to talk radio, even when I wanted to listen to music in the car in my teenage years. It was only talk radio. And now that happens the same in my car with my children. He loved Muhammad Ali, as many of you know, and he even named my sister after Muhammad Ali. My father always rooted for the underdog. He encouraged me to take risks, told me to go outside of my comfort zone. Though all of you who know about my father would never have used the word comfort zone. That's way too new age-y. He had a lot of energy. Dad made friends with everyone. He made friends with the leaders of the world. He made friends with the workers. I think he preferred the workers, but he loved everyone. He was generous. He was old-fashioned in many ways. He never, ever let anyone pick up the bill when I was with him. He taught me how to drive when I lived in Chicago. I almost once got us killed in a car, and there were a bunch of choice words, but he wasn't mad. He signed all of his letters to me with a stream of XOs, and he used to draw a little bowl of chop suey, and he'd write chop suey. My father lived a good life. He had curiosity about the world. He was as street smart as anyone. And if anyone ever needed help, as you've all heard, he was always there. And Dad spent his last days in Los Angeles, a place he loved and wanted to be as long as my memory goes back. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that there were no regrets on my part in parts of our relationship. Any life thoughtfully examined must surely have regrets. My dad did not want to die, but I think he would have, if he would have had the chance. His last days probably wouldn't have looked that much different than how he was living. Barring more time, I'm not sure what else anyone could ask for.
I'd like to call up Andrea at this time, along with Jeremy, Hollis, and Jake, please.
Hi, I'm Hollis Long, and this is my brother Jake, and we're Mickey Cobrin's grandchildren. And this is my mom, Mickey's daughter, and my dad, his son-in-law. We created something for you guys to take home, which we'll have in the lobby later, in honor of Mickey. It has to do with the tradition we're going to be sharing with you guys. One of the most meaningful moments in my life with my grandfather was when he came to my bat mitzvah and was able to share in the Jewish tradition that was so meaningful